what happened is that they didn't put both cars in. They didn't put the McLaren and the BMW in the lawsuit, right? Because I guess they up, and I was like, guys, like it's not one car, it's both cars, brother. And then even though the lawsuit was already served and filed, they had to redo it, redraft it, refile it. And I think there was like problem with like serving it. I think they're kind of being sneaky with the new one. Like it's kind of being weird. Let's just say that the other party never really played fair from the beginning. That makes sense, especially with the one. And I mean you guys know with the main lawsuit or whatever, right? The sneaky tactic that they were doing, the bullshit, like the barely legal maneuvers and fucking disgusting shit we're doing after that. Well, let me give you a roundup. Here's how absolutely disastrous the legal system is, right? In that regard, initial lawsuit that isn't the car, the main one, was obviously expensive for law fees, right? For the other party, and then it made the car frozen. The McLaren frozen, where the car cannot be moved or sold. I won that lawsuit.
It's good to see XQC finally being more vocal about his RP divorce and legal battles with Adept. Despite him able to successfully beat her in the fake divorce, his personal property is still up in the air. It's more specifically the proceeds from the sale of his McLaren and the BMW that Adept is currently driving right now. Before we get into Adept's 47-page appeal, goddamn, let's finish hearing about XQC and his story from his point of view.
Right? And I asked my lawyer a gazillion times. I was like, listen, the car's gonna stay frozen when the lawsuit is over, and we can deal with the car itself, or the cars themselves, right? They're like, yes, absolutely. I must have asked a gazillion times, and this guy's on top of his game. He knows his shit, trust me. He assured me in every way that because the lawsuit was freezing the car, they made a filing that would keep the car frozen even after the lawsuit so we could deal with the car. So then we won the lawsuit, and then the car was still frozen legally, right? But other party said this shit, what I think, allegedly, even though it was supposed to be frozen, the car was sold under the radar, right? Which shouldn't happen, right? And then which would violate the agreements. And then I think once they went to the I was like, dude, this is fucking brain dead. And we as a judge or whatever, they were like, I don't remember exactly like what the legal wording is or whatever, but basically the judge was like, full dismissal, like I'm done with it. Like the case was drawn for fucking months, if not years, right? The whole process was a piece of shit, right? That whole lawsuit was absolutely disastrous. Basically, what I'm getting out of the response, what I'm reading out of that is that the judge was like, whatever the next, and dismissed everything, even though my car was sold illegally under her nose.
So why did the judge not go after Adept for selling the McLaren? One word: jurisdiction. The judge lacked jurisdiction over the car. Now, had a full-blown marriage been determined, the judge would have had legal jurisdiction over all property deemed marital. However, since that was not the case, and technically the car's location is in California, she had no jurisdiction. But furthermore, the judge had to be tired of both XQC and Adept. Here you got XQC with, all this money complaining over a car that he gambles every day with. That's not the point though. That's what people see it as. Like, oh, he can afford this loss. That's what it's not about, okay? His personal property was sold without his permission, and he didn't get any proceeds from it. Furthermore, she's still driving his car today. So that's probably why the judge said, I don't want to deal with it, and kicked the can down the road, and now he's back in California.
Now we have to file in California a complete different type of lawsuit to get the funds and to get the money out of that car back, and now both cars back, right? But now with the money gained from the car sale, they retroactively paid for their law fees and even increased their law payments to file an appeal for the main lawsuit again. So now the case that was dismissed up and all that reopens on an appeal with the lawyers paid with the car money that was stolen under that same lawsuit. So at that point, I'm just like, you say it's smart. Well, it's just illegal. If you do like illegal, ratty, high risk, sure, whatever, right? I guess as the dumbass, like rich male dude in this case in family court, I guess in that way, people didn't really give a shit about like my well-being, and that's just like I guess I just lose because of that, and that just kind of sucks, right? If you were to reverse the roles, that would never happen.
Even though XQC is worth over $100 million, having the best lawyers I'm sure money can buy, even with the law on his side, he is powerless, or was powerless, in stopping the McLaren from being so. And during the case, his rights were violated under false pretenses of SA. This is why men need to avoid family court at all costs. But he did not want to be in family court. He was forced into this court by his greedy ex-girlfriend who was trying to rob him, hoping that he would settle for millions. Good thing he did. But he's about to make a great point, a good life lesson that all people can learn from.
It's like fighting a homeless. Okay, I know this will sound weird. It's like fighting somebody who's homeless. If you go around, right, and you go to the club or some shit, right, and out of nowhere, some schizo homeless wants to fucking fight you to death or something like that, right, and he insults you and pushes you, whatever, right, do you turn around and actually fight back, right, and you say, yeah, fuck yeah? Absolutely fucking not. Because that person has nothing to lose. They have nothing. They're going nowhere. They have no goals. They have no aspirations most of them in this case, right?
That's right. Adept is the homeless person in this situation. Literally, she has nothing to lose but millions to gain. Even if she only has a 1% chance of winning, if she wins, she will probably be a millionaire overnight. So now let's get into the appeal. And XQC, despite winning, has to spend more money to keep her away from his empire. Looking at this docket sheet, it's interesting that she said this is worth under $100,000, which I believe is the judgment against her for XQC's legal fees. She wants an appeal from the judgment. However, we know if she gets a new trial, it's going to be worth millions if she wins. Also, what's interesting, it's no party has filed for bankruptcy, which we suspect it will be her likely to file bankruptcy if she loses this appeal. Now, after this appeal was filed, XQC instantly asked her attorney for more time, which they agreed upon, pushing his response date back to September 13th, 2024. They notified the judge of the agreement, and we can expect that response sometime this week. Let's get into her 47-page appeal. Here's the table of contents. Before we go through it, let's listen to her preliminary statement.
This is a divorce proceeding involving a common law marriage. Samantha Lopez and Felix Lengyel are common law married since August 2020. Felix denied that they were common law married. In August 2020, Felix agreed with Samantha that they were common law married, which he represented on more than one occasion during that month. They presented themselves to the Canadian government as married so that Samantha could visit Felix in Canada during the only way that she could during is if they were married and if they were immediate family. They have always used that entrance date of Samantha going to Canada as their date of marriage. Since that time, they have lived together in Texas as spouses and held themselves out as married to friends and family and the general public. Samantha represented that she was married to her family, the two housekeepers, Felix's mother and a friend. She observed Felix represent to his mother and their housekeepers that they were married. They have had discussions about being married right in front of Felix's mother. Later, Samantha recalled Felix telling the members of her family, her sister's boyfriend, her friend Milena, a lawyer she met with, and the housekeepers, that they were married. Samantha and Felix were talking to her entire family when they were to visit for Thanksgiving, and Felix and Samantha were talking about how she was able to go to Canada to visit Felix. Her family were asking how she was able to get into Canada, and Felix explicitly said, well, because we're married. In March 2023, Samantha also told Felix's father that they were married. Felix also explicitly told Samantha's friend that they were married. Beginning in August 2020, Felix and Samantha affirmatively began to refer to each other as husband and wife to third parties. Samantha filed for divorce, and after discovery was conducted, Felix filed a no-evidence motion for summary judgment, asserting that there was no evidence that there was an agreement to be married, and that there was no evidence that the parties held themselves out to others in Texas as husband and wife. The trial court erroneously granted the no-evidence motion for summary judgment because there was more than a scintilla of evidence that Samantha and Felix agreed to be married, and that they held themselves out to others in Texas as husband and wife.
Now that we got that out the way, that preliminary statement is going to come up several times, several different ways, but I'm going to point out the new information that she provides in her spin on things. And I'm going to actually show you how she shot herself in the foot, citing one specific court case. So going through this table of contents, things that stood out, I mean, she brings up the Canada trip because that's going to be central, but there are a couple things in here that played no part in securing that they were married, such as buying the wedding ring and him purchasing a house. But let's go through it page by page for the most part. So we know what this appeal is. We already went through her preliminary statement. It's no surprise that Adept was upset for the judge granting XQC's no evidence motion for summary judgment regarding the existence of an informal marriage. She's mad she lost, guys. That's number one. Hey, why'd you grant that? Number two, she's upset that XQC's objection to her response to his response to the no summary judgment was granted. I mean, she tried to use basically the text message saying that they were conjoined as him agreeing to get married. No shot there. Also, she's upset that XQC's lawyer's objection to her deposition, which was attached to his response to respond to his response of the no summary motion for summary judgment was granted. All around sore loser. But we're going to look at some new information that she's going to try to present to better state her case. Okay, so here we go. We know she's trying to get them to say that they were informally married. Now she brings up this story about him going to Canada to renew his visa. And she cites the only way that she can go into Canada was during the pandemic if they were married or they were immediate family. She goes on to say they have been formally married at least since August 20th, but she has no freaking marriage date. Now she's going to reference the date that they went in there when she got into Canada as her date, but this is really nothing new. She's literally trying to cite this as them being married, but it falls on deaf ears. This is new information. One of the agents kept asking her about documents. She said that they showed that her and Felix met the common law requirements. We're going to get into those documents later. This was discussed with XQC and his mother. Samantha told her mother and Melina Palome, okay? Melina Palome, Nick Palome's, I'm guessing wife is, I don't know how she gets the last name Palome without being married. So this is how lawsuits can, have collateral damage. I'm not saying they're married because we don't know, but I did see a police report back in the day that did reference her name as Melina Palome when she called the cops when she thought someone was breaking into his house.
I mean, the real truth is fucking XQC's needs to fucking sell me his house that he doesn't even use anymore. That's what he needs to do. I'll take that house, XQC. Just give it to me, bro.
So she said, hey, I told housekeepers that she was going to Canada and that she'll have to prove that her and XQC are married so that she can travel there. Okay, so before they went to Canada, she talked to XQC's mother to say that she needs to acknowledge to the authorities that she knew XQC and her were married in Texas. And later she reminded her that the authorities would be calling to confirm their prior discussions. She went to the airport to fly to Canada and she had to show airline personnel that what she was taking to the Canadian government to prove that they were married. She represented the two personnel in person and one on the phone that she was married to XQC. After her representation, Samantha was allowed to board an airplane to attempt to enter into Canada. Now, the new information is that she told airline people that, hey, I'm married stateside. So maybe you can say that, hey, that counts as them holding off. And she also says she told 3 agents at the Canadian government that they were married. Okay, I'm just not buying all this we're married stuff because I told a handful of people. Now, she goes on to say that they agreed to get common law married because that was the requirements for them to get in Canada. She and Felix agreed to be married after she held herself out to others as married and lived together as husband and wife. And she's claiming they lived together as husband and wife since they had been in Texas. Okay. Now here comes the housekeepers. Okay. The party's housekeeper testified that they were living as a married couple and referred to each other as spouses or husband and wife. However, although she believed them to be married, she rarely talked to XQC and never personally heard him refer to Sammy as his wife. Sammy's mother testified, which we know that, she couldn't say that she heard him call her wife, that they were married. Sammy told the housekeeper, her family, various nieces and nephews that they were married after August 2020. Adept's mother believed that they were married because, and wait for it, here comes some new information, guys. She added him to the insurance for the McLaren and BMW and added XQC to their cell phone family plan as a family member. Now, look, you really are reaching when you say, hey, I put him on my cell phone bill as a family member. So therefore, he must be married to my daughter. Trust me, I could put a homeless person on the street on my friends and family plan and no one would be like, oh, are they related? No, absolutely not. It goes on to say, her mother was at the residence when the maids were there. And when they asked him, hey, your wife or something, he would always agree. XQC referred to Samantha as his esposa, which is Spanish for wife. Now we know XQC said he don't even know Spanish like that. Could he be lying? Perhaps, but who stands to lie more? Who gains more from lying? Her. In fact, in May 2020, after they moved into their new house, XQC told Sammy face to face, you are already my wife. Even as early as 2019, they had general discussions as marriage. Now look, saying someone is your wife one time does not meet the criteria for a common law marriage. Hence, she's appealing because the judge didn't care. Now she goes on to make this 100% misleading statement. Adept and XQC purchased a house in Cedar Creek. Let's read the statement. XQC and Adept purchased this house in Cedar Creek. Adept coordinated every single phone call, message, meeting, and everything for him to proceed with the purchasing of the house. She was the main point of contact for everything regarding the builders, the contractors, and the realtor. Once the house was completed, Adept and Felix lived in the house. What's missing from this statement is this house was purchased way before August 2020. Another thing is she's not listed on the deed or bill of sale or pays taxes on the house. Everything about this house is in XQC's name. XQC represented to his mother and their housekeeper that they were married. Like, this is just mostly fluff, okay? Samantha presented that she was married to her family and two housekeepers. You notice how she keeps repeating it? You notice how she keeps repeating it? Hey, just repeating things that we already know. Now we're about to get into the incident about the brother, okay? Remember XQC said, hey, family's not getting along. Let's hear what she said. They had a discussion of being married right in front of Felix's mother. When they were in Canada, Felix's family was upset that his brother wasn't living in the house with him and her and XQC. And Samantha told them that the issue for she and Felix was living there as husband and wife in their new home alone without the brother. Later, Sammy recalled Felix telling the members of her family, her sister's boyfriend, her friend Melina, a lawyer, and the housekeepers that they were married. Samantha and Felix were talking to the entire family when they were there to visit for Thanksgiving, and XQC and Sammy were talking about how she was able to get into Canada. You see how she kind of keep repeating, I was able to get into Canada, so we must be married. Her family were asking, was she able to get into Canada? And she explicitly said, well, because we're married. Recently, while in Los Angeles, her mother told XQC she felt like he wasn't taking care of Adept the way a man takes care of a wife. Felix responded that she is my wife. This occurred during one of the times that they were attempting to reconcile, but it's no date. In March 2023, Adept told Felix's father that they were married. XQC explicitly told Adept's friend that they were married. Now, which friend is it? Are we talking Melina Paloma again? Like, who is this mysterious friend? Let's keep going. The wedding ring. Guys, we all know this wedding ring was a ruse, okay? She gave, what was new here is Samantha gave XQC several wedding anniversary cards. Where are these cards at? And if true, where is the goddamn proof? We know her. She loves to drop proof. She would not just mention this without proof. I wonder were they just like, the anniversary of them starting dating that she interpreted as the anniversary cards, or were they true saying happy wedding anniversary? They told the sales associate that they were married or that it was a wedding ring. Now, here's the thing. When you see a statement like or, you have to be like, well, which one is it? Did you tell them y'all were married or that it was a wedding ring? She probably, I can't remember. Whatever. Felix bought Sammy a wedding ring when they were attempting to reconcile. She was adamant that she would not attempt to reconcile without a wedding ring. Yeah, this is the same ring that he purchased for probably less than one spin to make her happy. Maybe it's a couple spins. Let me not be facetious. Probably about 20. She made him other ring so he could smash. And after he smashed, didn't she put the essay on him? Like I said, guys, you're not really seeing nothing too new yet, but it's coming. So she states that they're common law married, oh gosh. In one particular occasion, when they had moved back to her parents' home, XQC walked into a room in front of his mother and her mother and asked Sammy, are we married? And she says, yes. And he goes, what? And Sammy says, yeah. And Felix says, no, seriously. Oh my goodness. You're not going to say that we're married. Samantha asked him, what are you talking about? Then he had further discussions about being married in Canada or not in Canada, but being married at the time when she was going to Canada. Now, this is a very confusing statement. I don't know if he's checking her about saying, hey, stop saying we're married, or we are married based according to Canada. And if that's the case, why she ain't suing him in Canada? Oh, because she don't have residency. Okay, great. Let's keep going on. Now, here is some new information. This is 100% new information. Felix and Samantha affirmatively refer to each other as husband and wife to third parties, right? Emphasis on third parties, because the reason why she says third parties is because she lost because she could not provide any third party witnesses that didn't benefit from them being married. By benefit, I mean have a financial vested interest in the outcome, whether that be housekeeping, friends, or family members. So now she's saying, hey, we said we were married to these third parties. Now, when you get to these third parties, something's gonna be a little different. Beginning in August 2020, Felix and Samantha affirmatively began to refer to each other as husband and wife to third parties. Now, these third parties include the electric provider, Perdono's Electric, AT&T, Spectrum, the City of Cedar Park, to the gas provider, Texas Gas or Encore. And usually, Adept would be on speakerphone with the provider and they would ask XQC, because the utilities were in his name, do you agree that this is wife and you're giving us permission to speak with her on the accounts? And he would say yes, and it would go from there. Now, concerning the home builder, when talking to XQC, the home builder referred to her as his wife, and XQC did not correct them. There it goes. But, remember, this is how she was able to shut off his utilities. Now, of course, he testified and denied everything as he should, okay? Now she goes on to cite that they're professional streamers, and because of their public personas, Felix or XQC always wanted her to portray their relationship in different ways and not necessarily being allowed to say they were married and not being allowed to say they were dating. This alone, she's trying to give a reason why she never held out to the world as being married and only a couple people as being married, is under his authority, saying, hey, he told me not to say anything. Now, here comes some more new information. This is the part I wanted to find out, but it got sealed. So now it's kind of getting unsealed a little bit. You can infer exactly what she means. In November 2022, Adept filed for divorce. In April 2023, she filed a first amended petition for divorce and original petition for alternative causes of action, asserting causes of action for breach of contract or implied contract, fraud, promissory estoppel, constructive fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, constructive trust, partnership, de facto partnership, joint venture, declaratory relief, and quantum merit. Felix filed a motion to bifurcate the trial, which the parties agreed to. Now, what does this mean? When you say implied contract, now I can't confirm this. But when you say an implied contract, you're basically saying, hey, he said this. There is no physical contract because she was provided one that, hey, he said in the event we go our separate ways, I get X amount of dollars. That's not what was said here. He likely said something in the heat of the moment. I'm going to take care of you forever. I'm going to provide you with this. I'm going to provide you with that. And because she is losing the divorce, she throws this Hail Mary mid-divorce to say, hey, breach of contract. Even if we're not married, I still own half of everything because he has a implied contract. And she labels all these things in hopes of just one sticking.
Always been promised compensation, being taken care of, being loved, being wanted back, being missed. It didn't meet.
Wait, did she say she was always promised compensation? Like, what is it? Adept, did you pay for play? Adept, hold on.
Whoa. Wait 1 second.
Let's get back to this appeal, guys. What do you think about that? Let's keep going. XQC files a no evidence motion for summary judgment, which he asserts that there is no evidence that there was an agreement to get married and that the parties never held themselves out to others in Texas as husband and wife. Emphasis on Texas. The law requires you to hold yourself out in Texas. Not in California, not in Canada, but more so in Texas, okay? She's trying to argue that she had enough evidence to say that they're married. In July 2023, Adept filed a response to XQC's no evidence motion for summary judgment, asserting that there is sufficient evidence to raise the fact that the parties agreed to be married, and after that date held themselves out to multiple parties that they were married. She attached various exhibits, including her narrative, her affidavit in support of the temporary restraining order and ex parte relief. This was the first restraining order. This was her first affidavit where she said, hey, we both own the McLaren and he's weaponizing his audience against me. I fear for my, all that good stuff. Second, the transcript from a temporary orders hearing where no one's able to drive the McLaren and she got the Tesla and BMW. The reason she got that because the judge erred on the side of caution and the fact that, hey, the McLaren did have her name on the title. The McLaren was set on ice. She got the Tesla and BMW, and that's because it was in California. 3, the deposition transcript from her. Now, her deposition is literally what triggered GigaChat lawyer to file a motion for no evidence because no evidence summary judgment because he realized she has absolutely nothing. More new information. So XQC objected to some of her summary judgment evidence. So he filed his objections. And what did we get here, guys? He wanted to get rid of the depositions of 3 new witnesses, right? These 3 witnesses were housekeeper 1, housekeeper 2, housekeeper 3. Okay, so the judge threw out the housekeeper's sworn statements, which was the right call. Let's continue. As we know, after all that got thrown out, the judge pretty much granted XQC's no evidence motion for summary judgment and dismissed the case for lack of subject matter jurisdiction. Hence, she filed this appeal. Now look at this. She puts in her summary of the argument, which was pretty much her opening statement this is like the 3rd time it's in here, guys. We literally do not even need to read this. We can literally just skip it because we already seen it. Now let's get to her argument because her lawyers is about to cook themselves and I got all the proof. The trial court abused its discretion alternatively and erred when granted XQC's no evidence motion for summary judgment because there was more than a scintilla of evidence that Adept and Felix agreed to be married and that they held themselves out to others as husband and wife, which we know that that's just not a truthful statement. But she goes on to cite one case, not this one. This is all case law. All right. She goes on to reference her evidence is her opening statement, which who cares about that crap? Who cares about this? Okay. It's more of the same. More of the same. Rehashing of the story that the maid referred to her as his wife and did nothing. Okay. And she says clearly there's more than a scantily of evidence that they were married. But not the case. But here's where she shoots herself in the foot. Right here. See, there is more than a scintilla of evidence that Samantha and XQC held themselves out as marriage. Now I said this is an L for her legal team, and I'm gonna prove it. I'm gonna show you why. Holding out may be shown by conduct other than the actions of the parties. Okay, this is great. You're like, okay, well maybe they conducted themselves as husband and wife, not necessarily saying that they were husband and wife. Okay, and representation. Spoken words are not necessarily to establish the representation as husband and wife, but actions are sufficient. And she cites a legal case. Now, I looked up this legal case, the Riley v. Riley, right? Riley v. Riley. We are aware that occasional introductions as husband and wife are not sufficient to establish the element of holding out. The element requires both parties to have represented themselves as marriage. But she's like, hey, let's look deeper into Riley v. Riley, right? All right, so let's look at Riley v. Riley. We only need to read the summary, right? So reversing the trial court's no evidence summary judgment based solely on the affidavit of the proponent's spouse, husband who testified that the couple often referred to each other publicly as husband and wife, and the husband always introduced the wife as his wife and she never objected. The wife publicly wore a wedding ring for many years. They registered at a hotel one time as husband and wife, and they commingled some of their funds. Now, when you look at this case and you compare it to Adept and XQC, there is some notable differences. One, XQC never wore a wedding ring. 2, XQC never really introduced her as his wife, and if he did, it was probably only a handful of times. But 3, there was no commingling of funds. You see, this whole he conducted himself as husband and wife just does not fit the narrative. Let's get back to the appeal. The rest of it is basically when she adds a little bit more information. When she traveled to Canada to see XQC, she told at least 7 people that she and XQC were married. She had to show proof that they lived together for the last couple of years, copies of bills in both their names and the same addresses. Checked with her sponsors, confirming that there was an address and a lease with both of their names on it. Now, this proves that they were just cohabitating, not necessarily that they were married. She goes on to rehash talking to the agents, but for the most part, there is nothing new outside of this, and she is just reaching. She, she brings up the housekeeper again, and the mother and the friend. It's going to take more than 3 people to prove that they were married. We know she told Melina, but I wonder, did Melina testify? I don't think she did. But hey, here we go. Now, here is some new stuff, right? Her family were asking how she was able to get into Canada. Felix said, because we're married. Recently, while in Los Angeles, her mother told XQ, we already read that. The wedding ring is here again. The states that they're common law married. This is really a horrible Hail Mary attempt to prove that they were married. The utilities again, the professional streamers. This just ain't gonna cut it. But what do you guys think of Adept's Hail Mary attempt to prove that they were married via this appeal, making him fight it? I don't think she's gonna win, but it is gonna delay. He's gonna have to respond. He's gonna respond. We'll see what his response is, but let me know if you like the video. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
So it's not because somebody does some underhanded, illegal shit that I'm gonna do the same thing to get my justice. I'll get my justice in court. I'll take the time it takes if it's not months or years or multiple lawsuits or a bunch of other new lawsuits I have to file. I will win in the end.